Chapter 51 Littlefinger Visits. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As the news of Gavin's complete conquest of the Stepstone Island spread, merchant ships came and went more frequently. The envoys sent by Dorn also came to the Stepstone Islands at this time. Compared to the three daughters, the other party's attitude was quite friendly. Gavin understood as soon as he thought about it. Dorn's current maritime power was almost crippled by the Black Shark Earl, and it no longer even had an organized fleet. Dorn was even more eager to stop the dispute than Gavin. In this case, the two parties hit it off immediately and the cooperation agreement was easily signed. After sending away the Dornish envoy, Gavin began to vigorously reorganize the entire Stepstone Islands. He appointed Hassan as the fleet commander. In fact, Gavin also understood that Hassan's ability may not be up to the task, but Gavin currently has no one available. Hassan is at least loyal enough and can barely manage the fleet. Gavin also promoted soldiers who performed well in many battles to officers, and appointed those with meritorious service to positions such as captain and first mate. Under clear rewards and punishments, the control of the army became increasingly stable. Later, Bellerys was appointed as the governor of Bloodstone Island. In their previous interactions, Gavin found that Bellerys was quite fair and very attentive to his work. Due to the instability of the newly conquered Grey Gallows Island, Gavin planned to take charge personally. So the management of Bloodstone Island was handed over to him. The serious shortage of talents has made Gavin consider whether he can open a school to train himself. As for the people he knows in the plot who are good at management, it is now difficult to find them. On this day, Gavin was busy discussing with Bellerys about opening a school, but he suddenly received news of the arrival of an unexpected guest, Littlefinger Peter Baelish. According to the guards, Peter claimed that he was under the influence of the order from the Royal Council came. Gavin's face was solemn when he heard about the visitor, and he became cautious. He knew that this was an ambitious conspirator who would do anything to achieve his goals. In the future, he would use his conspiracy to cause chaos in the entire Westeros. After thinking for a moment, ordered someone to take him to the study for an interview. In the study, Gavin looked at Peter in front of him. He was wearing a decent green robe, with a humble smile on his face, and he was secretly warning, "You have to be careful, don't be tricked by him." With enthusiasm on his face, Gavin personally poured a glass of wine and handed it to Peter, saying, "Welcome to the Stepstone Islands. Sir Peter, I'm deeply sorry that I couldn't go to greet you in person." Peter took the wine glass with both hands politely and responded, "Thanks for your interview, Lord Gavin, please don't do this. It's me who has taken the liberty to interrupt this time." Gavin sat up straight, with admiration in his eyes, and continued, "I heard that during the few years you served as the tax collector in Seagull Town, you actually increased the tax revenue there by 10 times. For this reason, you have won the attention of the Prime Minister. I am interested in letting you serve in the Imperial Council, and I really admire your extraordinary abilities." Peter bowed slightly and said, "The few achievements I have achieved are nothing compared to your glorious achievements in developing the Stepstone Islands, Sir Gavin." Feeling that the business exchanges were almost done, Gavin asked politely, "I wonder why Lord Peter came here this time." Peter said, "Lord Gavin, I am here under the order of the Royal Council, and I want to discuss some important matters with you." Gavin secretly thought to himself that Jon Arryn had almost the final say in the current council, but he still responded politely on the surface, "If the council orders something, I will do my best to satisfy it." After hearing this, Peter looked at Gavin with a smile. "Lord Gavin, have you ever heard of the tax collector system in the 5 major port cities in Westeros?" Hearing Peter's words, Gavin had a vague suspicion in his mind. "You know, the 5 major port cities in Westeros usually refer to King's Landing, Old Town, Lannisport, White Harbor and Seagull Town, because the trade in these ports was extremely developed. After Aegon first conquered Westeros, he brought the tax revenue from the 4 major ports except King's Landing under the direct management of the Iron Throne. The tax collectors sent by the Iron Throne were responsible for collecting and management, and then allocate part to the corresponding lords. As for King's Landing, it was gradually developed in the later stages of Aegon's conquest and is itself under the direct jurisdiction of the Iron Throne. Apparently, the huge trade tax brought by the Stepstones attracted Jon Arryn's attention. Gavin raised his eyebrows and said bluntly, "So Lord Peter is planning to make the Stepstone Islands imitate the model of the 5 major ports. But as far as I know, following the tradition of the 7 kingdoms, I am under the influence of Lord Mace Tyrell, Duke of Highgarden. To issue a development order, you only need to pay the taxes generated by the corresponding population and land in the territory directly to the High Court." "Lord Peter, is this contrary to the tradition of the 7 kingdoms?" Peter hurriedly explained, "Of course I personally support tradition very much. It was the intention of the Prime Minister. Before setting off, I also gave advice to Lord John. However, the current financial situation of the Iron Throne is quite serious, and Lord John failed to listen. Gotta go in." Gavin put away his smile and turned serious. "I have nothing to do with the Iron Throne's financial problems. Tax collection should be directed to Highgarden, not to me." Peter sighed helplessly. "That's true, it's just Lord John's insistence. Now everyone in the Royal Council also obeys the Prime Minister's orders." After hearing this, Gavin had doubts. Peter did not bring a direct order from the Royal Council. Obviously, what he called John's persistence was unsuccessful. Thinking of this, Gavin bluntly asked, "Really? As far as I know, the Royal Council is not a one-word meeting for Prime Minister John. Many things need to be decided at the meeting. Lord Peter came here just for discussion and did not bring an order from the Royal Council. It seems that there is still room for discussion on this matter." Peter smiled and changed the joke. "I heard that Lord Gavin is buying dragon bones at a high price." Peter's question made Gavin confused, but he did not shy away. "It is true." Peter could not help but sigh. Dragon. How powerful and mysterious. Even if it has disappeared for a long time, its remains still attract many people. Unlike our king, who abandoned many dragon bones in the underground of the Red Castle and ignored them. Gavin's heart moved after hearing this, and he hurriedly said, "I heard that Lord Peter has a wide range of friends and knows many merchants on the other side. I wonder if you can buy some dragon bones for me." Peter nodded and said, "I can ask for you. If the price is right, I believe there will be many people willing to sell." Gavin continued, "The price will definitely satisfy your friends, and I have a great demand for quantity. It's just that Lord Peter, can you help me persuade the Prime Minister to set up a tax officer?" Chapter 52 Cooperation with the Royal Fleet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Peter smiled slightly and said, "Actually, Lord Gavin just wants someone to speak for you at the Royal Council. I believe the Prime Minister will also consider other people's opinions." After hearing this, Gavin immediately said, "I wonder if Lord Peter can help me speak at the Royal Council." Peter smiled modestly and said, "It's not possible for me alone, Lord Gavin, but I have a way. Since the rebellion of the Iron Islands, the ships of the Royal Fleet have not been replenished, and even the funds are often in arrears. His Majesty the King does not pay attention to it. In the recent Royal Councils, Lord Stannis has been asking for an increase in the funds for the Royal Fleet, but unfortunately, they were all rejected by the Prime Minister. If Lord Gavin is willing to let your fleet assist the Royal Fleet in patrolling and fighting pirates, and jointly maintain the stability of the kingdom, I can lobby Lord Stannis for you. I think Lord Stannis, who follows tradition, will speak for you at the Royal Council. Of course I am willing to maintain the stability of the kingdom. These things depend on you, Lord Peter." Gavin replied with a smile. Gavin stood in front of the window, watching Littlefinger's back gradually going away, and he really admired this conspirator in his heart. With just one conversation, he successfully disrupted Jon Arryn's original decree, allowing the financial problems of the Iron Throne to continue to deteriorate, paving the way for him to become the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and indirectly helped Stannis a lot. Gavin was sure that when he went to see Stannis, he would do his best to show how he worked hard for the Royal Fleet to show his goodwill to Stannis. However, based on Gavin's understanding of Stannis, the other party might not appreciate Littlefinger's kindness. As for the dragon bones of his merchant friend, 9 out of 10 came from the Red Castle, but they both knew it tacitly. In the end, those golden dragons did not fall into Peter's pocket after all, and he pretended to be trying his best to help. If Gavin was not a time traveler, knowing what kind of person he was, he might really regard him as a good person. Above the narrow sea, the sky was as blue as a gem, pure and clean, with white clouds floating leisurely. The gentle sea breeze blew slowly, bringing a hint of salty and bitter smell. However, at this moment, the sea was by no means calm. The three-bow crossbow on the bow of the sailing warship fired crossbow arrows one after another. The powerful kinetic energy carried by the special arrows caused the wooden boards at the stern of the enemy ship to instantly crack, and the debris scattered like snowflakes. For a time, wood chips flew all over the sky. The three warships chased the two pirate ships relentlessly. Finally, a three-bow crossbow luckily broke the mast of the pirate longship. The broken mast fell down with the torn canvas, splashing huge water on the sea. The pirates were panicked, and curses and shouts were intertwined. The sailing warship that successfully broke the enemy's mast did not slow down at all. It hoisted the flaming flag and aggressively passed the pirate ship that could no longer escape, chasing after another fleeing pirate ship. The pirates who were ready for a boarding battle watched the sailing warship rushing past from one side and going far away. Their tense nerves had just been relaxed when suddenly a violent shaking came. A warship flying the crown and stag flag rushed towards the stern of their ship, and the huge ram ruthlessly tore the hull that was already broken by the crossbow arrows, and the ship almost disintegrated. A large amount of seawater poured in from the broken crack. The pirate ship began to tilt gradually, and some pirates jumped off the ship in panic, but they were met with countless arrows like locusts, and finally died in the cold sea water. As the warship flying the crown stag flag slowly retreated, the already riddled pirate longship began to sink, and finally slowly sank into the sea, leaving only circles of gradually dissipating whirlpools and broken wooden boards on the sea. On the other side, the sailing warship that caught up with the pirate ship successfully approached, and at the moment of boarding, a burst of crossbows shot out, and the opponent's deck was instantly cleared. The soldiers jumped onto the enemy ship like a tiger descending from the mountain, and launched a fierce close combat with the pirates who had just survived by chance. The swords and shadows were intertwined, and the shouts of killing were deafening. As more and more soldiers joined the battle, the pirates could not resist after all, and surrendered one after another, and the pirate ship was successfully captured. The sea gradually returned to calm, and Hassan boarded the royal fleet ship flying the crown stag flag in a small boat. Hassan boarded the ship flexibly, and the sea breeze brushed across his vicissitudes of life, stirring his messy curly hair. He looked up and saw that the Onion Knight Davos Seaworth had been waiting here. Davos crossed his arms, a teasing smile on his lips. His eyes fell on the pirate ship that Hassan dragged back, and said, "It seems that Commander Hassan has made an unexpected capture this time." Hassan's face was filled with excitement, and he responded loudly, "It's all thanks to your judgment. The pirates really took this route, otherwise how could they be caught?" After hearing this, Davos smiled bitterly, shook his head and said, "In fact, there is no judgment. It's just that I used to do smuggling business and often took this route. The other party wanted to escape the search and had no other choice." Hassan smiled after hearing this, gently patted Davos on the shoulder and comforted him. "I was just a hired captain making a living on the narrow sea before, and I didn't expect that I would become the commander of a fleet now. In fact, how can I know how to command a naval battle? But I have a lot of experience in operating a ship. You see, my ship is always faster than yours." After hearing this, Davos smiled at Hassan. Then, Davos invited enthusiastically, "There are a few bottles of summer red in my room, would you like to try some? I've wanted to try it for a long time, but you just don't want to take it out." Hassan said enthusiastically after hearing this. Then the two of them entered the captain's room together. The interior layout was simple and practical. A somewhat yellowed nautical chart was spread flat on the wooden table, and compasses, telescopes and other navigation instruments were neatly placed next to it. Davos walked to the table, bent down and took out a bottle of summer red from under the table, and skillfully poured a glass for Hassan. The red liquid rippled slightly in the glass, exuding an attractive aroma. Hassan took the wine glass, took a sip, and then sat down in a comfortable chair, his eyes full of thought. Hassan was the first to break the silence and said, "Davos, should we continue to intercept passing smuggling ships and pirates here, or return home?" During this period of time, there are fewer and fewer pirate ships coming and going. Davos frowned, clasped his hands in front of his chest and said slowly, Hassan, I think we should rest here for 2 days and then return home. We have made a lot of gains this time, and the supplies are not enough. Chapter 53 Hassan returns. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Hassan nodded slightly in agreement. After a moment of silence, he suddenly said to Davos, Can you hand over the pirates you captured before to me? Anyway, if you take them back, they will just be hanged by Lord Stannis. After hearing this, Davos thought for a moment and said, You can take part of it back, and I need to give the rest to Lord Stannis. The name of the cruel Gavin has long been spread across the strait, but it is different from compared to Lord Stannis. Those pirates are lucky to be in the hands of Lord Gavin. Hassan quickly joked, Sir Gavin doesn't like the title given to him by these pirates. At that time, I saw with my own eyes the process of him reorganizing those pirates. Those pirates were wild and untamable, and they even rioted and ran away. If Sir Gavin hadn't, I'm afraid it will be difficult to control through some means. Davos nodded slightly and said, Lord Stannis does appreciate Lord Gavin's opening up the Stepstone Islands, but he still has some criticisms about the reorganization of pirates. Lord Stannis believes that he should be hanged in accordance with the law. Die. Hassan took a sip of wine and responded, This is really in line with Lord Stannis's behavior. There is no way to recruit pirates. We have a small population that can be recruited there. After boarding the ship, we have to train them. After all, these pirates, they are all skilled sailors and can use them as they come. The two of them talked to each other, talking about the situation at sea, their own experiences, and their future plans. Time passed unconsciously, and the sky outside the window gradually darkened. This conversation has already reached nighttime. Davos said while looking out the window. Hassan stood up and stretched, Yeah, time flies so fast. I had a great time chatting with you today, but it's time for me to go back to my ship. Davos also stood up, Let's meet again another day, and be careful along the way. Hassan smiled and nodded, then turned and walked out of the captain's cabin, disappearing into the night. Hassan's visit was precisely because of Peter's visit more than half a year ago. Not long after Peter left the Stepstones and returned to King's Landing, Gavin received news from Peter. With his extraordinary eloquence, Peter succeeded in convincing Stannis, who had always been stubborn, to be willing to speak up for Gavin at the Royal Council. In return, Gavin did not hesitate to send a large sum of gold dragons to purchase the so-called dragon bones. Then Gavin sent his confidant, Fleet Commander Hassan, to lead a fleet of 30 warships to Dragonstone Island and obey Stannis's command. Under Stannis's orders, Hassan assisted the royal fleet in clearing most of the strait trade routes of pirates and smugglers. Both parties agreed that the ships and prisoners captured by each would belong to each other. Not only that, in order to express his sincerity in supporting the kingdom, Gavin also generously donated 100,000 golden dragons to Stannis's royal fleet. After the fleet set off, Stannis sent his subordinate Davos Seaworth to accompany Hassan. It was only during the operation to eliminate pirates and smuggling ships that Hassan and Davos got along quite happily. During the chat, Hassan learned that Davos was once a smuggler. He was made a knight by Stannis just because he successfully smuggled a boatload of onions and salted fish to Storm's End. Davos also learned that Hassan was just a mercenary captain before. After being rescued by Gavin, he was promoted to fleet commander. The two people, who came from the same lower class, seemed to have found each other's soulmates, got along very harmoniously, and gradually became good friends who talked about everything. After the two led the team back to Dragonstone, Stannis was very satisfied with the clearing operation and allowed Hassan to lead the fleet back to the Stepstones. The afterglow of the setting sun shines on the vast sea, giving the waves a layer of golden color. The sea breeze blows gently, bringing a salty breath. Hassan led the fleet and finally arrived at Bloodstone after a month-long route. Island, the port was busy, people were coming and going, shouts and trumpets were intertwined. Workers loading and unloading cargo are busy, and the masts of the ships are like a forest of spears. When Hassan's fleet appeared in people's sight, the entire port boiled instantly. The ship docked, the sailors skillfully tied the ropes, and the prisoners were driven off the ship. They looked tired and huddled together in a noisy group. The soldiers responsible for the handover shouted loudly and tried to maintain order. Hassan stood on the bow of the ship, scanning the chaotic scene with his eyes slightly frowning. After the initial arrangements for the ship and the prisoners were made, he hurriedly jumped off the ship and rushed towards the city lord's palace. Along the way, the streets were filled with the smell of sea water and fish, and the cries of vendors kept coming. Hassan couldn't care about these, and only wanted to report the results of this battle to Lord Gavin as soon as possible. After rushing to the city lord's palace and seeing Gavin, Hassan bowed and said, "Lord Gavin, this cooperation with Stannis is temporarily over. Lord Stannis asked me to express my gratitude to you on my behalf." Hassan handed over a letter from Stannis. Gavin took the letter, opened it and browsed it quickly, then raised his head and asked, "You have been to Dragonstone Island. How do you feel about the current strength of the royal fleet?" Hassan thought for a while and replied, "Although the royal fleet claims to have more than 100 ships, I see that at least 30 of them are seriously aging and have not been maintained for a long time. Moreover, there are insufficient personnel and the ships that can move are not enough." Halfway through, many of the ships were captured iron-borne longships, and there were not many real sailing warships. Then, Hassan took the initiative and said, "Sir, in this naval battle, I also found that the captains in the fleet are not very good." Gavin said helplessly, "That can't be helped. Most of the original pirate captains have been dealt with by me. The rest are low-level sailors. It is inevitable that some of them are unqualified when they are promoted temporarily." Then, Gavin said to Hassan, "I plan to open a naval school to train these captains, first mates, boatswains and other personnel in turn. What do you think of this idea?" Hassan responded, "My lord, this idea is very good. When I was young, I worked as a sailor in the Purple Fleet of Bravos for 2 years. There are similar institutions in the Purple Fleet that specialize in training these personnel. Can we invite some people from there at a high price to teach the captains of our fleet?" Gavin nodded and said, "Okay, you can do this. In addition, regarding the problem of insufficient manpower, I have an idea. Can we buy them from Slaver Bay and let them develop some sailor skills in a targeted manner?" Hassan said, "My lord, many jobs on the ship are repetitive and mechanical. I think those slaves can also do it." Chapter 54 Goodbye Edmond. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gavin said, "Then send a ship to Astapor to find out more, talk to the slave owners, and see the situation. If possible, we will purchase a batch of such slaves." Gavin continued, "I have an idea to gradually replace most of the pirate longships in the fleet with more powerful sail warships." Hassan frowned and said, "Sir, there are very few fleets in the world that are all sailing battleships. Only the Purple Fleet in Bravos is. If we gradually replace it, I'm afraid it will take a long time. This cost it's too huge. The shipyards on both sides of the Taiwan Strait do not sell sailing warships directly, and it takes nearly a year to customize a sailing warship." Gavin said, "We are not short of money at the moment, and the income from collecting tolls and selling goods in the territory is still very considerable. We can gradually sell all the longships, and at the same time replenish the sail warships, and gradually complete the transformation of the fleet." Hassan said, "Then I will send people to contact some reliable shipyards. You can spend more money, as long as they give priority to building for us. In addition, we can also expand the shipyards in Lord's Shipwreck Bay." Gavin responded, "I'm already expanding over there at Shipwreck Bay. Currently, I've built 2 large shipyards. I'll give you the newly designed sail warship drawings later and let them build them according to these requirements." After saying this, Gavin smiled and said to Hassan, "You have been traveling for more than half a year this time, so you should go down and rest early. I specially built a manor for you on the island. You haven't seen it yet, so you can take advantage of it when you come back. Go check it out." Hassan's voice trembled with excitement, and his eyes were full of gratitude. "Sir, I, Hassan, will repay your kindness with eternal loyalty." Gavin waved his hand, "Go and have a good rest." Hassan saluted again and withdrew gratefully. Aegon 295. The newly expanded port on Bloodstone Island presents a bustling and busy scene. The huge pier is carefully built with solid stones, and merchant ships are constantly coming and going. The sea breeze carries the rich smell of sea salt and spices, and the shouts and the noisy sounds of loading and unloading goods are intertwined, and together they play a moving movement of prosperity. The port continues to stretch towards the town, and countless houses have sprung up like mushrooms after rain. On the streets, merchants from all directions were busy and crowded, and their bags were filled with a dazzling array of rare treasures and various commodities. The entire Bloodstone Island has taken on a completely new look, and the once desolate and barren landscape has been completely replaced by the bustling and lively scene it is today. In the past 2 years, Gavin relied on the knowledge from his previous life to repair the island's water conservancy, cultivate fertile fields, and guide the people in agricultural production. The new farming methods have greatly increased the yield of farmland, and people's granaries have become increasingly abundant. For this reason, he developed the surrounding islands with fresh water on a large scale, making those originally undeveloped lands full of vitality. In order to expand the population, Gavin spent a lot of money to purchase a large number of slaves from Slavers Bay, and promised the slaves under his rule that as long as they worked hard for 5 years, they would be free and own the land they had cultivated before. To this end, Gavin's money was spent continuously like water, but his devotion also reaped huge rewards. Now the food from the entire Stepstone Islands began to be exported crazily. He also specially ordered from Astapor to train more than 3,000 Marines according to the training methods of the Unsullied, and together with the original soldiers, he formed an army of 5,000 men. Based on the training of the Unsullied, these navies also possess excellent navigation skills. During this time, many products produced by the Steppe Islands, such as soaps, perfumes and exquisite glassware, set off a craze throughout the world. In addition, the Stone Steppes Islands also produced papyrus for daily use, as well as high-quality paper widely used for writing, recording, and printing. Although they were resisted by some forces in the school city during the promotion process, these novel items still brought huge profits to Gavin. With this series of initiatives and profits, he successfully built a fleet of 90 warships and 50 armed merchant ships. Nearly half of the warships were large sailing warships with a length of 50 meters. Each ship had equipped with 6 modified 3-bow bed crossbows. In order to build these ships, all the shipyards on both sides of the narrow sea were forced to work overtime by Gavin's heavy investment. These warships were majestic on the sea, becoming a powerful force guarantee under Gavin's rule, and also made his rule in this area the sea is more stable. At the port of Bloodstone Island, a warship was slowly docking. A 4-part flag depicting the silver Holy Grail and the black rose was hung on the mast. Edmond on the ship was filled with emotion as he looked at the prosperous Bloodstone Island. Since then, after parting ways with Gavin at the tournament, Edmond's life continued as usual, but he never saw Gavin again. Time flies and the years pass by. It was not until various news came one after another that Edmond was shocked to realize that Gavin had achieved such remarkable achievements. This time, Edmond, his wife, and their lovely son and daughter came here to play with great joy at the invitation of his nephew Gavin. Along the way, Edmond's heart was full of expectations and emotions. He wanted to recall every bit of the past, and at the same time he was curious about all the glory Gavin had now. The 2 children were chattering excitedly, full of curiosity and longing for the upcoming journey. Their mother Lilith looked at them tenderly, with her eyes showing love for the children. As the ship gradually docked, Edmond saw Gavin from a distance. He was standing on the dock, wearing a decent ceremonial robe, with a long sword on his waist. He was tall and had silver-white hair fluttering in the wind. The whole person looked majestic. Behind him were 4 2-meter-tall guards, wearing full-body armor and looking majestic. Some soldiers guarded both sides, clearing an open space on the dock. The sailors skillfully dropped the cables, tied them in place, and the pedals were slowly lowered. Gavin, who had been waiting here for a long time, finally saw Edmond, who had been away for a long time. The 2 smiled at each other, and then hugged each other tightly. Gavin said excitedly, "Uncle, long time no see. Everything has been going well for you these years, right?" Edmond smiled and responded, "Everything is fine, but it's you, Gavin, who is so successful now. Uncle is really sorry for you." "You are happy." Gavin hurriedly said, "Uncle, this is all a coincidence. Then Gavin looked at Edmond's wife, Lilith Tyrell, and bowed and said, "Mrs. Lilith, I haven't seen you for many years. You are still so beautiful." Chapter 55, Madam Lilith's Advice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's been many years. I remember that when you left Three Towers Castle, you were only 14 years old. Now you are so handsome and you are already a handsome boy. After speaking, Lilith pointed to the son and daughter in front of her and introduced, "This is my son Lucas and my daughter Betty." Lilith smiled and said to the two children, "This is your eldest brother Gavin." The two children obediently shouted in unison, "Brother Gavin." Gavin smiled and said to the children, "Lucas, Betty, I brought gifts for you." As he said that, he took the prepared gifts from the attendants beside him. He handed Lucas a very exquisite silver dagger with a hilt inlaid with precious stones, and gave Betty a string of pearl necklaces that exuded a soft luster. The two children happily took the gifts and said in unison, "Thank you, Brother Gavin." Gavin smiled and touched their heads. Gavin held a grand banquet on Bloodstone Island in the name of welcoming his uncle Edmond's family, the governors and officials of the Stepstone Islands, as well as the captains and commanders of the naval fleet, all came to the scene. The scene was very lively. Gavin also specially invited a very famous troupe from Essos to perform, making the banquet extremely lively. At this time, several governors on the island were actively communicating about the industrial development of their respective islands. Gavin heard their discussion, turned to Edmond, and asked with a smile, "Uncle, how is the situation of paper sales now?" Edmond said, "Hey, since you sold me the special paper sales, the income has been quite good, and it has even far exceeded the territory's tax revenue. During the early promotion, the school city was very resistant and suppressed the promotion of paper many times, but it's good now the situation is slowly opening up. I have now extended the paper to the Hajin area, but the supply is not keeping up." Gavin frowned slightly, and after thinking for a moment, he said, "The special status of the school city relies on monopolizing knowledge. They are worried that knowledge will be easier to circulate, so suppressing paper is inevitable. However, with the convenience of paper, you don't need to worry about them. You can't worry about the output. Don't worry, I'm already working on it, and the new factory will be put into use next month." Edmond nodded and responded, "Well, that puts me at ease. By the way, there's one more thing. There's news about the Kaibane you asked me to inquire about. I heard that he is currently following a group of bandits in the Riverlands. Mercenaries, they seem to be called warriors." Gavin's eyes lit up and he said, "Uncle, when you return to Westeros, help me bring him a letter." Edmond asked curiously, "I heard that Qyburn was kicked out of the school after doing some extremely evil research. What is so special about him that you are so interested in him?" Gavin replied, "Uncle, I studied with this Qian Bane when I was in the city. He is extremely knowledgeable, whether it is medicine, ravens, agriculture, or intelligence. And I have dealt with him and know his ability. Because of the paper business, I have never had a bachelor here, and I have not even raised ravens. I want him to come to the Stone Steps Islands to help me and help me train some talents." Edmond smiled, "Okay, I'll help you with it when you get back, but you'd better investigate him. After all, he has been following this group of bandits and mercenaries for so long, and it is inevitable that he will have bad habits." At this time, the troupe's wonderful performance reached its climax, everyone's attention was attracted, cheers came and went, and the atmosphere of the banquet became more enthusiastic. At this time, Mrs. Lilith handed Gavin a letter and said, "This is the letter Marjorie asked me to forward to you. She hopes that you can attend her 16th name day next year." Gavin smiled. He responded, "Now that the situation on the Stepstone Islands has gradually stabilized, I miss the Reach very much. I will definitely go back to see it and attend Miss Marjorie's name day." At this time, Lilith spoke again, "Gavin, now that you have grown up and control such a vast territory, have you ever thought about what kind of wife you want to marry?" After hearing this, Gavin began to think in his heart. Stand up, Gavin has also considered before that the most ideal choice for the future is undoubtedly Daenerys Targaryen. If he marries her, he will have the right to claim the entire Westeros, which can greatly satisfy his ambitions, and the opponent's dragon is also an important help, so you don't have to become his opponent. Then Gavin thought of Marjorie again, and he had to admit that whether it was when he was watching a drama in his previous life, or when he met her at a martial arts tournament, her gentleness and beauty made Gavin fond of her, especially since the other party's political wisdom could greatly influence her. Consolidate his rule. Gavin suppressed his chaotic thoughts and replied, I haven't thought about this yet. After hearing this, Lilith continued, do you need me to recommend some people for you? If you hadn't been living far away from the Strait for a long time, if you had achieved such success in the Reach, the families interested in marrying you would have been at odds with each other. Lilith paused for a moment and then said, Gavin, the heir is very important to the territory, especially for a newly developed territory like yours, which lacks the precipitation of time. Having an heir can stabilize people's hearts, and the marriage of the family is serious. Thinking about it will help you a lot if you choose the right one. Although you are still young, you have to think about these things quickly. Gavin was lying in bed at night, still thinking about Mrs. Lilith's words. The words of the other party are not unreasonable. His goal is far more than just a narrow sea and stone steps islands. How about taking action now when Daenerys has not yet become the Dragon Mother, so that he can gain the right to claim it and avoid the appearance of the Dragon Mother in the future? He was deeply impressed by the Dragon Mother's paranoia when he watched the show in his previous life. As for Little Rose, it was not something he could consider at the moment. He would take it one step at a time. Finally, with the complicated thoughts in his mind, Gavin gradually fell asleep. The next day, Gavin, who had just woken up and was washing, received a hurried report from the guards, saying that Boris wanted to see him. Gavin did not think twice and immediately asked someone to invite him into the study. After Boris came in, he bowed deeply and respectfully, and then said earnestly, Sir, newly graduated management personnel. Bloodstone Island hopes to allocate more. Recently, many new factories have been put into use. I am really short of manpower here. Can you leave me 10? Gavin held his chin with his hand, thought for a while, and responded, this matter can be discussed. After completely controlling the Stone Steps archipelago, Gavin appointed the capable Boris as the governor of Bloodstone Island and the extremely loyal Hassan as the fleet commander. At the same time, he also arranged several other capable people to serve as governors of other islands, aiming to ensure that his sphere of influence can be stable and developed. However, as the situation progressed, Gavin obviously felt that there were not enough capable people. So he started to train talents himself, selecting people with a certain foundation to study in the school he opened, and they could serve as grassroots officials after meeting certain conditions. But even so, talents are still scarce, and every time a group of new people are trained, the governors of various islands will scramble to get them. Chapter 56 News from the Expedition Team. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Boris continued, My lord, there is one more thing. The envoy sent to Braavos has returned. Upon hearing this, Gavin leaned forward eagerly and asked, How about it? Will the Sea King sell me the Valyrian steel sword? Boris looked embarrassed and replied hesitantly, the messenger said that Neptune refused. However, Neptune said that he would like to invite you to Braavos as a guest. If you like, you can visit Neptune's treasure house there, but the things in the treasure house not for sale at all. After hearing this, Gavin frowned tightly, his eyes showing a hint of displeasure and disappointment. He slowly leaned back on the chair, crossed his arms on his chest, and after a moment of silence said, The Sea King of Braavos is really incapable of getting in. Boris lowered his head aside, not daring to express his anger. Gavin gritted his teeth and continued, Forget it, ignore him for now, Boris. Regarding personnel allocation, I will weigh the situation of each island and try to meet your needs, but you must also find ways to improve efficiency. We cannot rely solely on increasing manpower. Boris nodded quickly and responded, Thank you, sir, I will do my best. Gavin waved his hand, signaling Boris to step aside first. After Boris saluted again, he turned and left the study. Gavin sat on the chair, lost in thought, thinking to himself, Neptune is not selling now because he is not strong enough. If one day his fleet becomes so powerful that even the King of the Sea is afraid of it, I don't believe he would dare not sell it. Thinking of this, Gavin became more determined to explore Valyria. The dragon eggs were more attractive than the fleet. Gavin has also tried to acquire dragon eggs over the years, but he was lucky enough to acquire 2 fossilized dragon eggs that had lost their vitality. As for the dragon eggs obtained by Illyrio, the spies sent by Gavin have been keeping an eye on them, but they have not found anything yet. It's not sure whether he hasn't obtained the dragon egg yet, or whether he has hidden the dragon egg too deeply. If the former acts rashly, he may lose the trace of the dragon egg. Currently, Gavin can only wait. During the following period, Gavin took the Edmond family to enjoy the entire Stepstone Islands and appreciate the unique scenery of each island, until the day they were sent to the boat for their return journey. Both of them seemed reluctant to leave at the dock. Edmond looked at Gavin in front of him, his eyes full of deep concern and deep reluctance. Gavin, you must take good care of yourself. Now that you have a huge territory, you must remember to get married as soon as possible and give birth to a child. Only in this way can we strengthen the hearts of our subordinates. Gavin nodded firmly and said firmly, "Don't worry, uncle, I know what's going on." Afterwards, the Edmond family boarded the ship. When the ship slowly sailed away from the dock and gradually moved away, Gavin still stood there, staring at the direction of the ship for a long time, and the sea breeze gently brushed his face. His thoughts also drifted away. A month later, Hassan hurried to Gavin's study, and Gavin finally received the news he had been waiting for. Hassan reported, "Sir, the expedition team hired before has returned." Gavin looked stern and asked eagerly, "How is the situation?" Hassan said solemnly, "Sir, the channel map you gave is correct. Ships can indeed sail in without any hindrance, but it is very dangerous in the Sea of Smoke. After the ship entered the ruins of Valyria, the people on the ship began to fall ill for no reason. Their skin first became red, swollen and itchy, and then ulcerated and pus and blood oozed out. A lot of hair fell out. She was extremely depressed, her body became increasingly weak, and she often vomited, and the people who came back reported that they heard some strange roars from the shore, and they didn't know what kind of monster they were in the fog. There were 40 members of the expedition, including crew, and only 15 returned alive. Nowadays, several of these 15 people are seriously ill. The people who stayed on the ship heard that the people who came ashore seemed to be attacked by some creature. In the end, no one returned after waiting for a day. They had no choice but to return. Gavin frowned, thought for a moment and then said, "I know, since there is no problem with the waterway, prepare the manpower and ships." Hassan looked worried and persuaded, "Sir, can you not go on an adventure? The Stepstone Islands cannot live without you now." Gavin smiled slightly and comforted, "It's okay. You forgot that I can do magic. The things inside do not pose a threat to me." Hassan said eagerly, "My lord, please let me go with you." Gavin shook his head and refused. "You can't do it, you still have to be responsible for controlling the fleet. There is news that the Sangia tribe has gathered more than 40 warships in Reese. Although they are all old longships, but it's better to be careful. You must keep an eye on them. After I leave, the security of the territory will be left to you." Then, without waiting for a word, Hassan ordered, "Go and arrange the ship. We will set off in 2 days." Watching Hassan leave, Gavin thought to himself, with his current strength, there shouldn't be much danger in exploring the dragon lair of the Bellerys family. The channel marked on the channel map obtained before can just sail to the coast closest to the dragon's lair. As long as we get off the boat at that location, we will only be 2 days away from the dragon's lair in Belleris. Gavin plans to explore this expedition. With only his own blood dragon guard, once he lands on the land of Valyria, he can ride his horse and gallop through the starry night, and he can reach his destination in 1 day. He opened the panel and looked at it. Host, Gavin Bellerys, age, 17. Bloodline, Blood and Fire Dragonborn, Development 63% Dragon King Bloodline, Dragon Control and Flame Control, Flame Resistance, Domination, .63/63, your subordinates can be upgraded through the panel. .53 Primary Blood Dragon Guard, Blood Witch Puppet made with Dragonborn Bloodline can be advanced twice. .10 Advanced Blood Dragon Guard, can no longer be advanced. Skills, Flame Control, Legendary, Swordsmanship, Legendary, Flame Blade, Legendary, Archery, Master, Lance, Mastery, Energy Points, 0. Automatically absorbs the magic power floating around, or actively absorbs magic power. Gavin looked at the panel and thought, with these advanced blood dragon guards in hand, I should be able to deal with most dangers. In the past 2 years, Gavin has obtained a lot of dragon bones through Littlefinger Peter, and his strength has been greatly enhanced, as his bloodline development exceeded 60%, some of his skills were also unlocked to the legendary level, and the corresponding flame control was upgraded to flame control. When his bloodline development reached 60%, he gained the ability of flame resistance, which made him extremely immune to high temperatures and magical flames. Now Gavin can easily defeat hundreds of people with just a long sword, and his strength doubled after using the flame blade. Chapter 57 Sea of Smoke. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. 2 days later, 5 warships led by Bellerys headed for the Valyria Peninsula. The summer sea was sparkling, the warm sea breeze gently brushed the sails, the sea water was deep blue, as if it was integrated with the sky, and the white clouds were reflected on the sea, like a dream. However, when the fleet entered the Sea of Smoke, the scenery suddenly changed. The sky here was gloomy and depressing, and the heavy dark clouds seemed to be pressing down at any time. The sea was filled with strange fog, making the vision blurred. The Sea of Smoke, a mysterious and dangerous sea. According to records, hundreds of years ago, this place experienced the doomsday catastrophe of Valyria. That terrible disaster caused the earth to crack, flames to soar into the sky, and the boiling magma raged like a torrent, and the whole world seemed to fall into an endless hell. On the day of the doomsday catastrophe, it seemed as if the end of the world had come. Hundreds of miles around the Valyria Peninsula erupted at the same time, and endless ashes, smoke and flames gushed into the sky like violent demons. The hot and hungry flames spread rapidly, and even the powerful dragon flying in the sky was burned by the raging fire. The earth trembled violently, and the cracks were like the mouth of the abyss, ruthlessly engulfing the palaces, solemn temples and bustling towns that Valyria was proud of. The once sparkling lake water instantly boiled and evaporated, or turned into a pool of highly corrosive acid. The 14 peaks of the lava volcano on the Valyrian Peninsula erupted with a destructive force, and the hot lava sprayed high into the sky, as if to ignite the sky. Countless dragon crystals poured down from the red clouds like a rainstorm, carrying deadly danger and mysterious power. In the north of Valyria, the earth collapsed and shattered, and the scene was like the Last Judgment. The surging sea water poured in and filled the sunken land. This disaster tore the land around the city of Valyria into countless small islands. These small islands were filled with strange smoke, forming the terrifying Sea of Smoke. The fleet slowly sailed in the Sea of Smoke and stopped when it was about to approach the ruins of Valyria. The Bellerys, on which Gavin was riding, continued to sail into the depths of the Sea of Smoke, and the other ships stayed behind to support. As the Bellerys gradually went deeper into the Sea of Smoke, the fog began to become thicker, but some traces of the ruins of Valyria could be vaguely seen gradually appearing on the shore, and the surrounding scene became more terrifying and gloomy. The 2 banks were full of decayed scenes, and the withered vegetation drooped dryly on the cracked land. From time to time, there were some bubbling corrosive acid beaches on the ground, sizzling and emitting a disgusting pungent smell. The thick fog was like a heavy curtain, covering everything in it, making it difficult to see the way forward. In the depths of the mist, the roar of monsters came from time to time, as if it was a roar from hell, which was creepy. The voice was sometimes low, as if telling endless pain, sometimes sharp, as if warning the intruder. Every roar cast a shadow on the hearts of the crew, and fear spread among the crowd like a plague. On the second day of sailing in the Sea of Smoke, some of the crew on the ship began to feel unwell. They were pale, their eyes were scattered, their bodies kept shaking, and the horses in the cabin became irritable, and even one horse bit the crew who was feeding them. Gavin also felt physical discomfort, as if there was some kind of power in the air corroding his body, and he had to constantly consume the magic power in his body to resist. Feeling the corrosion of the unknown power, Gavin made a prompt decision and distributed the prepared potion to the crew. After taking the potion, the magic power brought by the potion relieved the symptoms of the crew, but the discomfort was still there. Gavin knew that he had to hurry up. If he stayed here for too long, the potion would no longer work. As the ship approached the destination, it slowly approached the shore. Suddenly, a huge wave rose up on the calm water without any warning, and a 3-meter-tall monster rushed out of the water and jumped onto the deck of the Bellerys with his hands and feet. The monster was huge and covered with sticky liquid. Its front claws were like sharp scimitars, flashing a strange luster in the dim light. Its teeth were sharp like saw teeth and very dense, exuding a chilling breath. The monster pounced on the sailors on the ship at an astonishing speed, accompanied by a shrill roar, and instantly tore a sailor into pieces. Blood splashed in the air and dyed the deck red. The other sailors screamed in fear and fled in all directions. Fear filled the entire ship. Their eyes were full of despair and helplessness, as if they had seen their own death. Seeing this scene, several blood dragon guards quickly came forward, but in the first battle with the monster, they were defeated for a while. Every attack of the monster was with the force of thunder and lightning, and the blood dragon guards tried their best to resist, and the swords collided, splashing sparks. Gavin, who heard the movement, came to the deck and stood in the distance to observe. Silently, secretly surprised in his heart that the power of this monster was far greater than that of the blood dragon guards. Its movements were agile and fierce, and every attack was full of deadly threats. But as the blood dragon guards cooperated with each other and formed a siege, the monster gradually fell behind. After a fierce battle, the blood dragon guard successfully chopped the monster into pieces and killed it completely. Gavin approached the body of the monster and observed it carefully. I saw that its front claws were sharp and extremely long, which could easily tear armor, and its hind claws were thick and powerful, and it could even stand when attacking. It has no skin, and its flesh and blood are exposed directly, as if it has been corroded by strong acid, showing a disgusting color. The twisted face and hideous and dense fangs are chilling. Gavin guessed that the previous expedition team might have been attacked by this kind of thing. It seems that the danger comes not only from the ruins on land, but also from the sea. In the following voyage, Gavin did not encounter any monsters, but the people on the ship were still nervous and terrified. Finally, on the third day of the voyage, the Bellerys arrived at the destination, but the draft was too deep to get too close to the shore. Gavin did not hesitate at all. In addition to leaving a few blood dragon guards in the cabin, he took the rest of the blood dragon guards and the horses that could still be controlled on the boat and rowed towards the shore. On the boat, Gavin looked at the surrounding environment, and his vigilance was not reduced at all. The atmosphere in the ruins of Valyria was extremely depressing, as if even the air had become heavy. The trees on the shore were twisted and deformed, as if struggling in pain. The decayed building was crumbling, as if it would collapse at any moment. Chapter 58 Dangerous Journey. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Some unknown objects floated on the water, sometimes rising and falling with the waves. Occasionally, some incomplete bones could be seen, which reminded people of the tragedy that had happened here. Gavin knew that there were countless dangers hidden in this ruin, and he had to be extremely careful. The sound of rowing the boat was particularly clear in the silence. Every time the paddle entered the water, it seemed to break an invisible barrier. Gavin stood at the bow, carefully observing the surroundings. The blood dragon guards behind him were also on guard against the water, ready to meet the upcoming unknown challenges. As the boat gradually approached the shore, Gavin could feel an evil breath coming towards him, and the corrosive energy became stronger. The land on the shore exuded a foul smell, and the stones under their feet seemed to be full of malice. When they stepped on the shore, the land under their feet seemed to tremble slightly, as if resisting their arrival. After successfully landing, the blood dragon guards immediately alerted the surroundings. It was difficult for 5 small boats to transport all the horses and blood dragon guards at one time. So Gavin had to rely on those small boats to transport repeatedly many times. With each trip, Gavin became more and more anxious. He knew that time was running out. The longer he stayed in this mysterious and dangerous place, the more unknown risks he would face. After a lot of hard work, the boat finally transported all the horses and the blood dragon guards. The direction of advance was determined. They all jumped on their horses and galloped towards the target. The sound of horse hooves echoed rapidly in the open wilderness, raising clouds of dust. However, during this gallop, the monster encountered before suddenly rushed out of the corrupt jungle on the roadside. It came fiercely and at a very fast speed. Before a junior blood dragon guard who was leading the way could react, he was torn to pieces by the monster, including the man and the horse. The bloody scene was terrifying. Gavin quickly took out the longbow from the horse, and while pulling the bow, a flaming arrow condensed, and the action was done in one go. The flaming arrow whizzed out and hit the monster accurately. The monster screamed, one of its front paws was blown off, and its body was charred and seriously injured. The other blood dragon guards immediately rushed up and chopped it down, successfully killing the monster. Gavin did not dare to stop for a moment and immediately continued to move forward. Half a day later, the ruins of a small town appeared in front of him. Gavin pulled the reins and stopped his horse to explore and check it out. The town was in ruins, with collapsed houses and mottled walls. The once tall buildings were now only broken walls and ruins. The unique carved decorations of Valyria also became blurred under the erosion of time and disaster. The streets were covered with gravel and rubble, as if telling the prosperity of the past and the desolation of today. Although the pillars of some buildings were still standing, they were already shaky, as if they would collapse in the next second. The doors and windows were broken, looking at the desolate land in a vacant way. The wind shuttled through the ruins, making a whimpering sound, as if it was the wailing of the town. Several blood dragon guards led the way, and Gavin walked into the town carefully, full of vigilance. This place may have been prosperous and lively in the past, but now it is dead silent. From time to time, some black dilapidated buildings can be seen on the road, and the strong Valyrian style shows the former glory. The stones of those buildings have been eroded by the years and look dilapidated. Some of them collapsed with a slight touch. In the ruins of houses and streets, many dry bones can be found, which are obviously the Valyrians who failed to escape successfully at that time. At this moment, the monster suddenly rushed out of a house, and it attacked a blood dragon guard who was very close to it with lightning speed. The blood dragon guard reacted very quickly, stabbed with a sword, and directly penetrated the monster's body. However, the monster hanging on the sword seemed to have no pain, and attacked frantically, instantly tearing a huge wound on the chest of the blood dragon guard. Then, before other blood dragon guards approached to rescue, the monster tore the blood dragon guard in half. Although the monster had a sword stuck in its chest and was seriously injured, it still rushed towards Gavin. A senior blood dragon guard quickly stepped forward and chopped it into pieces, ending the battle, but roars continued to be heard nearby, and it was obvious that the battle just now had alarmed many monsters. Seeing this, Gavin quickly led the team away, but it was still a step too late. Two monsters soon appeared in front of them, and the whole team was forced to stop and fight with them. The battle broke out instantly, and blood and fighting filled every corner. Gavin's long sword burst into flames and attacked the monster swiftly, chopping it into pieces with a few swords. However, as the battle continued, new monsters continued to pour in. The blood dragon guards gradually fell behind, and 3 blood dragon guards were torn to pieces in a short time. Seeing more and more monsters, Gavin immediately left 10 blood dragon guards to attract the monsters to cover the rear, and led the remaining blood dragon guards to quickly leave the battle and turn around to escape. Gavin, who successfully escaped, was full of doubts and thoughts. What kind of creature is this? Why is it so ferocious and not afraid of pain? What secrets does this Valyrian ruin hide? He looked at the ruins around him, and gradually developed a fear of the unknown in his heart. But Gavin knew clearly that he must not retreat at this moment, and must seize the time to continue moving forward into the depths of the ruins. Gavin hurried on his way, and even if he occasionally encountered some ruins, he did not go in to explore, but there were still constant attacks along the way, and similar monsters kept rushing in and attacking Gavin and his party. After going through numerous hardships, Gavin finally arrived at the secret dragon cave recorded by Bellerys. At this time, 30 blood dragon guards had been lost along the way. Fortunately, the remaining senior blood dragon guards were not hurt. Gavin looked at the ruins in front of him, a magnificent black temple built at the bottom of the volcano. It was closely connected to the mountain, as if it had grown naturally from the rocks of the volcano. The building was extremely large in scale, and the towering stone pillars stubbornly supported the heavy dome. Although part of it had collapsed, it still made people feel its former magnificence. The exterior walls of the building were covered with traces of erosion over the years. The black rock surface was weathered and bumpy, and strange mosses and vines grew in some places. The 2 huge stone doors at the entrance were broken and half hidden on the ground, as if telling the past glory and the present loneliness in a sad way. According to the diary of the ancestor, this building was a temple carefully built by the Valyrians to worship the gods believed by the Valyrians. The Bellerys family secretly built a passage connecting to the interior of the volcano underground behind the temple, and cleverly used the huge empty space inside the volcano to carefully build the entire dragon's lair. Chapter 59, Bellerys's Dragon Cave. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Leaving some blood dragon guards to look after the horses, Gavin led the other blood dragon guards into the huge building. The interior was also severely damaged, with stones scattered all over the ground, and occasionally broken huge iron chains and broken weapons could be seen. But the general shape was still intact, and the layout and structure of the past could be vaguely distinguished. As he walked, Gavin slowly explored inside and saw some remaining murals. Although the color of the murals had faded for the most part, the general content could still be seen. There were some fierce dragon fighting scenes painted on them, with giant dragons tumbling in the air, spitting flames, and the battle was thrilling. Through these remaining murals, Gavin saw that this was a dragon fight between Bellerys and other dragons. Obviously, this painting recorded how the Bellerys family gained absolute power in the internal struggle of Valyria. Gavin continued to walk inside until he was blocked by the collapsed ruins in front of him. Countless stones piled up together, tightly blocking the road. Gavin thought about it and judged a general direction based on the records. The blood dragon guard immediately stepped forward and dug hard. Finally, after clearing a part of the ruins, a passage that had not collapsed completely was exposed behind. Gavin and his party walked in without hesitation, but the passage was soon blocked again. In desperation, they could only start digging in the approximate direction again. In this way, they dug all the way and moved forward all the way. There was even a serious collapse on the way, with rubble rolling down and dust flying. Finally, Gavin found the stone door with the emblem of the Bellerys family painted on it behind the base of the statue, which was the same as the pattern on Gavin's dragon bone pendant. Under the great force of the blood dragon guard, the stone door was slowly pushed open, and a spiral staircase built on the stone wall appeared in front of Gavin. Gavin walked down the stairs, and the whole staircase was like a winding python. The torchlight illuminated the cave, and the light and shadow intertwined. The unevenness of the stone wall made the shadows unpredictable, as if performing a mysterious dance. Gavin walked carefully, with slight footsteps and panting sounds accompanying each step. As they continued to go down, the light gradually increased, and when they walked to the bottom, there was gradually a little light. Then, Gavin and his team entered an extremely empty cave. Looking up, a huge volcanic crack appeared above their heads. Through the crack, they could see the gloomy gray sky outside. Obviously, they had entered the interior of the volcano, and the crater above was also the passage for the dragon to enter and exit, continue to move forward to the depths. As they went deeper and deeper into the dragon cave, Gavin felt the temperature around him slowly rising, and the unknown corrosive energy gradually weakened. After walking through a winding road extending downward, he came to the bottom. The temperature here was extremely high, and the heat was blowing in his face, but at this time Gavin found that the unknown energy that had been corroding him before had completely disappeared. According to the diary, this is the bottom of the volcano. Going further ahead, there is magma, which is where the treasure house set up by Bellerys's family is. Finally, after passing through a huge cave, Gavin arrived at the place where the magma was. A lake formed by magma was boiling, rolling hot waves, and making a gurgling roar. There are many huge caves around the magma lake, which are bottomless. In the center of the magma, a giant dragon skull as big as a sailboat lies across it, like a towering island. The huge dragon head is raised high, and although it has no breath of life, it still exudes majesty and mystery. There are several huge stone tablets at the entrance of the cave, and Gavin walked towards the stone tablet. The stone tablet is vicissitudes and simplicity. The whole body of the tablet is carved from an unknown blood-red stone. The high-level Valyrian language engraved on it seems to be telling the vicissitudes of time. Gavin looked at it carefully and quickly sorted out the information inside. Written on it is the record of the Bellerys family building a dragon cave here, as well as the family's skills in hatching and training dragons. Bellerys, the strongest dragon in the family, died here. Since then, he often lived in the magma when he was old, until he died in the magma, leaving only a head floating on the surface of the magma. As Bellerys died, his flesh and blood merged into the magma. The family's fire wizards found that the magma below had changed greatly. Placing dragon eggs here can preserve and enhance the vitality of dragon eggs, and even placing dead eggs that cannot be hatched here can slowly recover, so the fire wizards of the Bellerys family transformed this place and built a secret dragon cave for preserving dragon eggs and hatching dragons. Not far from the stone tablet, a huge stone door was embedded in a natural cave. Gavin guessed that this was where the treasure house was. He pushed the door and walked in, and saw countless damaged wooden boxes, gold scattered in the boxes, and some filled with various gems, constantly shining with bright light. There was a collapsed bookshelf in the center of the treasure house, which contained some books. Gavin wanted to read it, but he touched it lightly and the books turned into ashes. Obviously, the high-temperature environment here and the long hundreds of years completely destroyed the knowledge. After searching for a long time, Gavin finally found some ornaments made of Valyrian steel. The only weapon was a dagger. Then he found a dragon bone bow in the corner. Gavin was not so eager for the dragon bone bow at present. He had obtained a lot of dragon bones in these years. The bow body made of it could indeed withstand the burning of the flaming arrows, but the bowstring could not. He tried many materials and could not do it. For this reason, he still used a wooden bow as a disposable item, and he thought that wooden bows were more cost-effective than dragon bone bows. Thinking of this, Gavin picked up the dragon bone bow and observed it carefully. Seeing that the bowstring was made of animal tendons, he had some expectations in his heart. He began to experiment nervously, and the flame arrow appeared on the bow out of thin air, and the bowstring was intact. Gavin couldn't help laughing. This bow was simply a magic weapon for him. Excited, Gavin handed the dragon bone bow to the blood dragon guard beside him, and searched carefully for a long time, not letting go of every corner, but in the end there was no new discovery. In desperation, Gavin went out to see the skull of Bellerys in the center of the magma, but when he got to the edge of the magma, Gavin was in trouble. Looking at the boiling magma, he hesitated in his heart, not knowing how to get to the Dragon Bone Island in the center. Although he has the ability to resist fire, he is not sure whether he can withstand the high temperature of the magma. After hesitating for a long time, Gavin made up his mind and gently put his hand into the lava. He felt it was quite hot, but he could barely bear it. Chapter 60 Dragon Egg and Golden Dragon. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Seeing that the magma did not cause him any harm, Gavin excitedly took off his clothes quickly and walked towards the magma. After Gavin stepped into the magma with his whole body, he immediately felt an indescribable burning heat, but the magma was not deep and the density was very high, so he could swim easily. The closer he got to the center of the magma, the stronger the heat became, as if an invisible hand of fire was tightly grasping every inch of his skin. Every step forward was like struggling in a sea of fire, and the hot magma tightly wrapped around his legs, bringing bursts of tingling. Gavin gritted his teeth and endured the pain that almost swallowed him. The burning pain was like countless sharp needles, constantly piercing his body, but he relied on his tenacious will to endure this inhuman torture and continue to move forward. Finally, after a long and painful trek, Gavin got closer and closer to the huge dragon bone. At this time, his body had reached the limit of endurance, and the pain almost made him lose consciousness, but just when he was about to faint, he saw more than 10 dragon eggs placed in the mouth of Bellerys' skull. These dragon eggs exuded a mysterious and charming light, as if they were a beacon of hope in the darkness. A trace of surprise flashed in Gavin's eyes, and he instantly forgot the pain in his body. He endured the last burning pain and accelerated his approach. When he finally lay down in the mouth of the dragon bone, a huge feeling of fatigue came over him. Gavin, lying on the ground, gasped and trembled, but his eyes were full of excitement and expectation. The magic power surging from the dragon bone of Bellerys under him continued to enter his body, and his condition gradually recovered. After a short rest, Gavin began to check these dragon eggs. There were 11 dragon eggs placed here, and 2 broken eggshells on the ground. He carefully stroked these dragon eggs, feeling their potential vitality. The heat around seemed to become gentle, as if welcoming Gavin's arrival. Gavin was very excited. He realized that these dragon eggs would bring him great power in the future. However, just as he was immersed in joy, a low roar suddenly came from a cave, and Bellerys' skull began to tremble slightly. Gavin's heart tightened and he looked vigilantly at the cave where the sound came from. Gavin's heart beat violently, as if it was about to jump out of his throat. His eyes were fixed on the pair of vertical pupils that appeared in the cave, and cold sweat slid down his forehead uncontrollably. The nervous Gavin was about to draw his sword, but found the embarrassment at this moment. At this moment, it is good to say that he was unarmed. Not only was he naked, but he was also isolated and helpless, and he was far away from the blood dragon guard. The magma lake became an insurmountable chasm at this moment. The vertical pupils in the cave flashed with mysterious and dangerous light, and every flash was like a heavy hammer hitting Gavin's heart. As the huge figure gradually appeared, Gavin finally saw that it was a dragon with golden scales. It was very thin and looked a bit skinny, but its huge body was still 17 or 18 meters long, and its pink wing membrane looked particularly beautiful in the dim light. The golden dragon slowly crawled out, with a heavy sense of oppression in every step, and its scales emitted a faint golden light in the dim light. Gavin swallowed nervously, his brain working rapidly, thinking about how to deal with it. The golden dragon raised his head and looked at Gavin, revealing a complex emotion in his eyes, with vigilance, curiosity, and a hint of imperceptible weakness. Gavin took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. He knew that any panic at this time could have fatal consequences. The huge body of the golden dragon slowly crawled into the magma lake, and the hot magma surged around it, splashing countless dazzling sparks. Every time it moved, it stirred the magma, forming a series of scorching vortices. Gavin's eyes widened as he watched such a huge beast approach him. His heart seemed to be tightly grasped by an invisible big hand, and he became more and more nervous. Gavin's breathing became rapid, and his heart beat rapidly, as if it was about to burst through his chest. But he knew that he couldn't panic at this moment, and kept reminding himself in his heart to restrain the tension and fear that surged like a tide. The golden dragon climbed up the dragon bone and approached Gavin. The huge dragon head was like a heavy mountain, slowly approaching Gavin. Its eyes gradually flashed with hungry light and looked at Gavin. Then its dragon mouth opened, and a faint fire lit up in the depths of its throat, as if volcanic lava was about to erupt. Gavin's face turned pale in an instant, his brain was working rapidly, and he was frantically thinking about how to deal with it. At this critical moment, he suddenly remembered a dragon taming technique recorded on the stone tablet. Without any hesitation, Gavin bit his wrist fiercely, and the bright red blood flowed out. He quickly smeared the blood all over his palm, then stood up while forcing himself to endure the pain, and looked directly into the frightening eyes of the golden dragon with a firm gaze. He stretched out his bloody palm to the golden dragon, and kept shouting in high Valyrian, "Stop the dragon flame, feel my blood, and surrender to me." The golden dragon smelled the taste of Gavin's blood, and suddenly stopped moving. There was doubt in his eyes, and he stopped the dragon flame that was about to be spewed out, tilting his head and looking at Gavin curiously. Gavin's heart was in his throat. He could clearly feel the hot breath of the golden dragon. Although the golden dragon temporarily stopped spewing dragon flames, the unknown variable still made him dare not relax at all. He suppressed the fear in his heart and continued to look at the golden dragon with a firm gaze. The high Valyrian in his mouth never stopped. Every syllable seemed to carry an ancient and mysterious power, trying to establish some kind of connection between him and the golden dragon. He took a deep breath, took steady steps, and walked slowly towards the golden dragon step by step. During this time, he kept looking at the golden dragon, and his eyes never dodged for a moment. Finally, Gavin walked in front of the golden dragon and gently placed his blood-stained hand on the dragon's mouth. The golden dragon trembled slightly, and then seemed to feel a sense of closeness, and the dragon head gently nudged Gavin. At this moment, a strong feeling of hunger and unbearable emotions passed to Gavin like a tide, making him instantly understand the urgent needs of the golden dragon. At this time, Gavin immediately looked around, anxious, and suddenly he thought of something, and immediately looked at the blood dragon guards in the distance. After a look, all the blood dragon guards understood, and immediately turned around and rushed out along the way they came. Then, Gavin turned his head and looked at the golden dragon again. He slowly put his forehead against the golden dragon's head, trying to convey his thoughts, and at the same time continued in high Valyrian softly and firmly, "Don't worry, listen to me, I won't let you starve." The golden dragon was confused at first, but gradually became confused and seemed to understand what Gavin meant.